In the fading light of March 22, 1897, a revolution was about to devour its own. Deep within a friar estate house in Tejeros, Cavite, the air was thick with the scent of gunpowder, ambition, and betrayal. What began as a meeting to unify a fractured rebellion would descend into a bitter power struggle, setting in motion a chain of events that would culminate in the tragic death of one of the Philippine Revolution's brightest stars. This is the story of the Tejeros Convention, the dark turning point where the fight for freedom turned inward, and brotherhood was sacrificed at the altar of politics. The year is 1896. The cry of Pugad Lawin has echoed across the archipelago, igniting the flames of revolution against 3 centuries of Spanish colonial rule. At the forefront of this struggle is the Katipunan, a secret society founded by Andres Bonifacio, known as the Supremo, is the heart and soul of the uprising. He is a man of the people, a warehouseman from Tondo, whose charisma and unwavering dedication rallied thousands to the cause of liberty. Under his leadership, the revolution spread like wildfire. However, as the revolution gained ground, cracks began to appear. In the province of Cavite, the Katipunan was split into 2 powerful factions. The first was the Magdiwang, led by Mariano Alvarez, an uncle of Bonifacio's wife. They remained fiercely loyal to the Supremo and the central leadership of the Katip. The second, and increasingly influential, was the Magdalo, led by Baldomero Ogino, cousin of a young and brilliant military commander named Emilio Ogino. While both factions were fighting the Spanish, their rivalry was palpable. The Magdalo, fresh from a series of stunning military victories in Cavite, began to operate with a growing sense of independence. They saw themselves as the more effective military force, while the Magdiwang championed the original, unifying structure of the Katipunan. This division was not just a matter of pride, it was a strategic nightmare. The Spanish, regrouping under Governor General Camilo de Pala, were launching a fierce counteroffensive, and the infighting among the revolutionaries was threatening to undo all their hard-won gains. Bonifacio, as the Supremo, was called to Cavite to mediate the dispute and restore unity. He was walking into a viper's nest. Bonifacio arrived in Cavite in late 1896, expecting to be received as the undisputed leader of the revolution. Instead, he was met with a political climate far more complex and treacherous than he had anticipated. The local Cavitelo elite, many of whom were part of the Magdalo faction, viewed Bonifacio, an Cavitelo from Manila. As an outsider, his authority was subtly and then openly questioned. The Magdalo faction, emboldened by their battlefield successes, began to advocate for a radical idea: to abolish the Katipunan and establish a new revolutionary government. They argued that the Katipunan was a secret society, suitable for starting a rebellion, but not for running a state. The Magdiwang, loyal to Bonifacio, resisted, arguing that the Katipunan already was their government. The tension was unbearable. A previous meeting, the IMAS Assembly, had failed to resolve the issue. Now, with Spanish forces closing in, the leaders agreed to convene once more at the Friar Estate in Tejeros. The stated purpose was to discuss the defense of Cavite, but everyone knew the real agenda: to decide the very future of the revolution and its leadership. The Tejeros Convention began on a chaotic note. The hall was packed with members of both factions, their loyalties clearly visible on their faces. Jacinto Lumbreras, a Magdiwang leader, initially presided over the assembly, reiterating that its purpose was to plan the defense of their territory. However, Severino de las Alas, a Magdiwang member who had begun to align with the Magdalos' thinking, stood up and forcefully argued that before discussing military strategy, they must first establish a government. The motion was quickly seconded, and the debate was hijacked. The convention would now be an election. Bonifacio, sensing the shift, agreed to preside over the election. However, he laid down one crucial condition, a condition that would seal his fate. He declared, "As you wish to establish a government to supreme over the whole islands, I will agree, as no one among you would place himself on my level. But I will impose the condition that whatever should be the result of the election, everyone should respect it." All present roared their approval, binding themselves by this solemn oath. The voting began. For the highest position, President Emilio Gonaldo of the Magdalo was nominated against Andres Bonifacio, and Mariano Treos. The ballots were collected and counted. The result was a political earthquake. Emilio Aguinaldo was elected president in absentia. He was miles away, leading troops on the front lines at Paso and Santol. The Supremo of the Katipunan, the very man who began the revolution, had been sidelined. The elections continued, each result a deeper blow to Bonifacio and the Magdiwang faction. Mariano Trias was elected vice president. Artemio Ricarte, Captain General. Emiliano Riego de Dios, director of war. The pattern was clear. The key positions were being filled by men from Cavite, solidifying the Magdalo's grip on power. Finally, the election for the last position, Director of the Interior, was held. Andres Bonifacio was elected. For a moment, it seemed he might still have a place in the new government, a chance to work from within. But then, a voice of dissent cut through the tense atmosphere. Daniel Tirona, a Magdalo delegate, stood up and questioned Bonifacio's qualification for the role. He shouted that a lawyer, Jose del Rosario, was more qualified for the position. This was the ultimate insult. It wasn't just a political disagreement. It was a personal and public humiliation. Bonifacio, the founder of the revolution, was being told he wasn't good enough by a subordinate. His honor was stained, and the agreement to respect the results was shattered by Tirona's challenge. Enraged, Bonifacio's temper flared. He felt the betrayal keenly, not just of his leadership, but of the oath they had all just taken. He demanded that Tirona retract his statement and apologize. He reminded the assembly of their unanimous agreement to respect the outcome. Tirona, however, mingled with the crowd, refusing to back down. The chaos grew. Bonifacio, his authority completely undermined, drew his pistol. It was only the swift intervention of Artemio Riccardi, who grabbed his hand, that prevented further violence, his voice trembling with fury and despair. Bonifacio made a fateful declaration. As the Supremo of the Katipunan, the authority that predated this new, contested government, he declared all proceedings of the Tejeros Convention null and void. He had come to Cavite to unite the revolution, and now he was leaving it more fractured than ever. He and his loyal followers stormed out of the estate house, the dream of a unified republic dissolving behind them. In the aftermath, Aguinaldo, upon being notified of his election, was initially hesitant, but he was persuaded by his followers to take his oath of office, cementing the results of the Tejeros Convention. Bonifacio, meanwhile, refused to recognize Aguinaldo's government. He and his remaining loyalists drafted two documents, the Nake military agreement and the Acta de Tierra. In these, they reaffirmed their loyalty to the original Katipunan, asserted that the election was fraudulent, and established a separate government and army with Bonifacio at its head. To Aguinaldo's new government, this was not just dissent, it was sedition. It was an act of treason. The die was cast. The conflict was no longer between Filipinos and Spaniards, but between Filipinos themselves. Aguinaldo's government, viewing Bonifacio as a threat to revolutionary unity, the very unity they had disrupted, ordered his arrest. On April 25, 1897, Andres Bonifacio and his brother Procopio were captured at their camp in Indang, Cavite. In the ensuing skirmish, their brother Siriaco was killed, and Andres himself was wounded. The wounded Supremo was paraded through the towns of Cavite, a prisoner of the very revolution he had started. He was subjected to a sham trial, overseen by a military court composed entirely of Aguinaldo's men. The charges were treason and sedition. The defense lawyer appointed to him acted more like a prosecutor. The verdict was a foregone conclusion. On my ocho terce Andres and Procopio Bonifacio were found guilty and sentenced to death, though Aguinaldo later claimed he commuted the sentence to exile. Pressure from his generals, who argued that Bonifacio's continued existence was a danger to the Republic, was immense. On May 10, 1897, under the command of Major Lazaro Macabagal, the two brothers were taken to the foothills of Mount Buna. There, in a quiet, secluded spot, Andres Bonifacio, the father of the Philippine Revolution, and his brother were executed. The Tejeros Convention stands as a dark and somber chapter in our history. It was the moment the revolution's ideals were compromised by regionalism and personal ambition. It raises haunting questions. What if unity had prevailed? What if Bonifacio had been given the respect he was due? The death of the Supremo left an indelible scar on the soul of the nation. A tragic lesson in how easily the quest for freedom can be corrupted from within. The ghosts of Tejeros remind us that the most dangerous enemies are sometimes not the ones across the battlefield, but the ones standing right beside us. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more dives into the complex stories that shaped our world.